Welcome to the Connecting Life podcast. I'm your host Dianaboskma, and I'm here to help you connect the dots of life so that you can live your best life in a healthy and fulfilling way. Today, we're diving into one of my favorite topics, the microbiome. You probably already guessed it. And we'll be exploring what some of the world's most traditional peoples can teach us about genuine, lasting health. We'll look at the astonishing gut diversity of Amazonian native communities. We'll look at African villages, and then we'll compare that to what we see in modern Western populations. And of course, we'll bring it all home to the principles that I always stand behind: nourishing animal fats, slow simmered bone broths, fermented foods, minerals from genuine whole foods, and time-tested preparation methods that protect the gut rather than assault it. So, let's sit comfortably. Here we go. So why does the microbiome matter? Before we explore indigenous diets, let's quickly look a bit at why the microbiome is such a central part of health. Your microbiome isn't just gut bacteria. There's a lot more to it. So it's an entire ecosystem. It's got all sorts of different type of living entities in there. That includes bacteria, yeasts, and viruses. They're all working together to support digestion, immunity, hormone balance, brain chemistry, detoxification, and also, and that's a not really important part, nutrient absorption. So, modern research from the corner of microbiology, as well as broader scientific literature, what they tell us is that the diversity of the microbes is more predictive of health than any single species. And also that traditional peoples living on ancestral diets, and they consistently display far greater microbial diversity than Western populations. And lastly, lower diversity correlates strongly with inflammatory illnesses, which is autoimmune issues, obesity, allergies, and mood disorders. So what that means is that our microbiome thrives when we eat in a way that reflects our physiology and history. So I want to share an Amazonian example with you, because I want to show you what indigenous microbiomes look like. So there's been some studies that they've done with the Yanomami and other Amazonian tribes, and what they show is that these people have the highest microbial diversity ever recorded. And that's a really interesting thing, because we can learn a lot from that. So these communities eat in a way that's deeply seasonal, that's omnivorous, and it is rooted in what the land gives them. So what does it include? Wild meats and insects, organ meats, because it's nose to tail eating, high fiber roots and tubers, fermented beverages, in the case of people in the Amazon, that's cassava drinks and things like that. Then also fruits, wild fruits obviously, and honey, because they're hunter-gatherers. So their microbiomes, they show traits nearly lost in the West. And those include bacteria that break down complex fibers and detoxify environmental compounds. They don't suffer from chronic inflammation and metabolic illnesses, which are really kind of normalized in our end of the world. And then I want to talk to you about the African villages, rural people. So this is in Burkina Faso, and children in rural Burkina Faso, for example, they have a microbiome shaped by traditional cooking methods. So long fermentation, nose-to-tail eating, and also naturally raised animals. So what their diets include is fermented porridges, and they're often long fermented, not like overnight or something, but much longer, and that reduces anti-nutrients. They also have fresh and fermented dairy, pasture-raised meats, wild greens, and minerals from traditional salts, broths, and slow-cooked dishes. So what you see is that these children have a far richer microbial diversity compared to people or children in our end of the world. So that's especially in the microbes that are associated with breaking down starches and fermentable fibers. And I personally find that really interesting. Reading up on that was great. So what you then get is the Western microbe. the Western microbiome. So Western microbiomes are shaped by a significant drop in fermented foods, because a lot of people don't even know what it means or eat them. And then a loss in animal fats, then also over-sanitized environments, frequent antibiotics, ultra-processed foods, no gelatin-rich broths, industrial seed oils, and mineral depletion in soils. And what the research then shows is that modern people from Western countries have a much lower gut diversity. They have fewer protective strains, and they have far more inflammatory patterns. So this doesn't mean that the people are broken. The people certainly aren't. What it means is that we live in an area where our diets are not natural and our environments are broken. So we have a broken food system, basically. The common thread. So what can we learn from traditional diets? What do traditional diets get right? When you look across continents, climates, cultures, you see something really interesting and beautiful. Healthy traditional people all follow similar nutritional principles. So across the Amazon, Africa, Middle East, Europe, and Asia, you see a recurring theme. Animal fats are central. So what you can think about is pasture-raised meats, lamb fat, for instance, butter, ghee, broths that have a little layer of fat on there, and then organ meats. And organ meats are really rich in natural fat-soluble vitamins, which is important for health. So there's a lot of vitamin A, vitamin D, and K in there. So what do these fats do? They feed the microbiome, they support mineral absorption, they stabilize hormones, and they reduce inflammation. So indigenous microbiomes thrive in that presence of those fats, but ours do as well. So another point is bone broths and slow-cooked dishes. You see them everywhere. Like in the Middle East, lamb stock simmered with spices like bay, cardamom. And then what we have in our end of the world is stews, like beef stew or lamb stew, or Irish stews. Irish stews are amazing. Those are these stews where the bones and the meat are slowly cooked with root vegetables. What you then see is African stocks. They are made from goat, chicken feet or fish heads. And in chicken feet there's a lot of collagen and gelatin, so that's really amazing. Fish heads have a lot of vitamins and minerals in there. So these broths provide collagen, gelatin, glycine and minerals, and that is in the way that the gut loves, because it's in the right form and in good quantities, exactly what we need. So what then happens is that seals and repairs. So heal and seal is one of those things that really, I like saying that, heal and seal. So yeah, it heals and seals the intestinal lining. It helps reduce the permeability, and it helps reduce inflammation. Another part is that in these traditional cultures, people eat fermented foods daily, not just occasionally. Because in our end of the world, it's become this thing of, it's kind of a luxury or a special thing to eat. But in those cultures, it's a standard thing to eat. So they never needed to be reminded of eating the fermented foods. Fermentation was simply a way to preserve food and make it more digestible, so easy to eat. And that means fermented dairy, fermented vegetables, fermented fish, fermented porridges, and lots of other things, because you can ferment pretty much anything. And these foods provide living microbes, enzymes, and organic acids. Those enhance digestion, improve nutrient absorption, lower anti-nutrients, and it strengthens gut diversity. And the next thing is that in their diets, there's minimally processed carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, they weren't avoided, but they were pulled straight from the earth, not from factories. So that was tubers, roots, fruit, legumes, soaked and fermented, ancient grains, long soaked, sourdough fermented, all prepared in ways that preserve nutrients and make digestion much easier. And then another part is that their diets were full of minerals, which meant natural salts, mineral-rich broths, shellfish, liver, and also very many colored darkly colored or deeply colored vegetables. So traditional diets, they put a lot of minerals in the body. And Western diets, not so much, because it kind of starves us of minerals. And minerals, they play a very important key role in gut motility, stomach acid production, metabolic enzymes, and microbial balance. So, how does this connect to our modern gut problems? Yeah, what does it mean for us all? So, what science says is that traditionally grounded foods showed a very different way of eating than what we have now. So we moved away from foods that our microbes evolved alongside. So when you remove broth, animal fats, fermented foods, and soil microbes, the diversity will drop. That's just what's going to happen because you don't get exposure. And then modern food processing destroys the microbial synergy. So what happens is that, like pasteurization kills enzymes and beneficial bacteria. Industrial oils, they promote inflammation. Sugar, it feeds the pathogenic strains. A lack of gelatin and connective tissues in your food weakens the gut lining. So what we can do is we can reintroduce ancestral foods, restoring microbial diversity. So what does that mean? Adding fermented foods, collagen-rich broths, fermented dairy like kefir, organ meats, and traditionally prepared carbohydrates, and that leads to a measurable shift in the microbial balance. And many people feel those benefits long before that shows in a lab because everything's changing on the inside, and step by step you notice that. So what are some steps that you can take to restore the gut diversity? So here they are. Number 1, take a bit of bone broth every day. Simmer beef, lamb, chicken, fish, doesn't matter. There's basically anything can be made into broth. And then depending on which broth it is, 12 to 24 hours, you can definitely, with chicken, 12 hours and it's done. What you can then do is you add some bay leaf, some cardamom, some turmeric, some peppercorns, and always a bit of apple cider vinegar. What you can do with that is just drink it. You can add a bit of tomato paste to it, then you have something that tastes a bit like a tomato soup or tomato broth, tomato flavoured broth, and then you can cook your rice in it. You can make soups, gravy, sauces, all sorts of stuff with it. And then fermented foods. Milk kefir is a really good one. Other than that, sauerkraut. You can add fennel or caraway to it to give it a bit more flavour, but plain it's nice as well. Then you can ferment carrots. What you can do with that is add some coriander seeds. Also really nice. I love it. And then fermented garlic or also fermented lemons. Then the next thing that we can do, which traditional people would do, would be eating nose to tail. So that would mean liver. Once a week is a good number of times to eat it. Heart you can use. I've added it to burgers because it just tastes slightly sweeter than standard beef. I've cooked it in stews that a part of it is heart, and it's really nice. You hardly notice a difference. My kids didn't notice a difference. And then slow cooked meals like lamb, for instance, and then cooking with chicken skin, broth, marrow. Don't waste anything, just use it all. And then restoring the natural fats, like olive oil for dressings, ghee, tallow, lamb, butter, all of that. And make sure that you leave the industrial seed oils out. So use the fats that give you a lot of vitamin A, D, E and K, and they're usually from animal sources. And then mineral-rich cooking, because that's also, minerals are really important. So the colourful salts like grey sea salt, pink Himalaya salt, blue Persian salt. I've had some red salt, I had some black salt. They all taste different. It's actually really fascinating to taste the differences of those. And then shellfish regularly. And then the bone broth based sauces. And then also long soaked or fermented grains. So here then, we're kind of done with it now, because I've explained quite a bit to you, and I don't want to overload you with lots and lots of information. So this is my last little bit about it. So when we look at the microbes of Amazonian natives, African villagers and other traditional people, we're not just comparing diets. What we're comparing is the relationship to food, land, animals and microbes. So traditional diets are diverse, sensual, deeply satisfying and nutrient dense. They're rich in flavour, warm spices, broth simmering on a stove, grilled meats, fermented vegetables and also creamy dairy. So they're rich in meaning because meals are eaten together. They're community meals. The slow cooking, the seasonal rhythms, it's done in a different way than, a rush after work to quickly get some food on the table. And the more we return to that, the more our microbiome responds. And many of the things we can do, like there's ways to make food so that after work it's ready. Like a slow cooker is amazing for that. But there's also the batch cooking or preparing meals ahead and then eating together, having a meal with family and things like that. So as the microbiome heals, we heal as well. And the science is really starting to show exactly what our ancestors already knew and the way they ate. So I want to thank you today for joining me. And if you enjoyed this conversation, although it was kind of a monologue, I guess, so please share it with someone who needs a bit of a nudge towards traditional nourishment. Most of us kind of need to eat a bit more that way. Some of us do. And if you'd like more resources or some freebies or some microbial support, you know where to find me. Once you've watched this video, in the description you can find the links to my website, etc. So until next time, take good care of your gut, and your gut will take good care of you.